Okay, buckle up everybody, because today we're diving into a story that absolutely nobody saw coming 3 months ago. Canada and India have just agreed to reopen negotiations for a major trade deal. And no, this isn't one of those smile for the cameras and disappear into the filing cabinet arrangements. This is a full sweeping agreement that could hit $70 billion in trade.
Today's story has everything. Tariffs, global drama, old diplomatic beasts, billion-dollar trade possibilities, and yes, the return of Mark, diplomacy would make it productive, Carney.
These two basically said, all right, let's rebuild this thing from scratch. After 2 years of frosty silence, public accusations, expelled diplomats, and enough awkwardness to power a whole season of Succession.
And the person at the center of it all, Mark Carney, calmly walking into a geopolitical mess like it's just another day at the bank. Meanwhile, Modi shows up with a grin like he already knows he's about to seal 3 deals and a photo op before dinner.
The stakes are real, the tension is real, the upside is massive, and the reason that this is happening now? Well, let's just say it involves a certain neighbor who slapped India with giant tariffs and accidentally shoved them straight into Canada's arms. Quick question for you though, before we move on. Given everything that's happened, do you think Canada can trust Modi enough to negotiate this deal? Yes or no? Let us know in the comments.
So let's get into it before J.D. Vance jumps online and tells everyone Canada only pulled this off because of our salad bowl immigration insanity.
Because nothing rattles him more than Canada landing real deals while the US keeps blowing its credibility right out the window.
And honestly, if landing a $70 billion deal is what insanity looks like, well, Canada should just bottle it and start exporting that too.
And hey, before we do dive in even further, a quick reminder, it's Black Friday week right now, and our merch store actually has deals we're proud of.
Yeah, unlike certain trade policies, these discounts won't blow up in your face. We have shirts, mugs, the whole Planet D collection is on sale now.
So grab something if you want to support the channel. The links are below. Now let's get back to Canada and India before another tariff lands.
So here's what happened. Mark Carney posts on social media that Canada and India are officially launching negotiations on a comprehensive trade agreement. That's a huge shift for Canadian jobs, tech, minerals, agriculture, and the Indian-born Canadian business community.
And he didn't tiptoe around it either. He went straight to the number, doubling trade to $70 billion. $70 billion, people. That's not a maybe we'll improve exports. That's get the economy a helmet because things are about to get serious.
And the real shocker? India confirmed it immediately. Delhi never does anything immediately. Delhi's default setting is form a committee, then a subcommittee, then circle back in 2029.
Yet here they were saying, yes, we're in. It's like watching two exes go from blocking each other's numbers to planning a vacation. And given how tense things were, complicated doesn't even begin to describe it.
No, it's complicated like expelled each other's high commissioners complicated. Complicated like held G7 meetings where the room temperature dropped 6 degrees when the topic came up.
But now, they're not just talking again, they're planning visits, they're coordinating ministers, they're setting up law enforcement cooperation. They basically hit the unfreeze button on one of Canada's toughest diplomatic files.
And it's happening because both countries need new economic lifelines for very different reasons, but at the same time. That's why this window opened right up.
And here's the truth. India didn't wake up one morning and think, you know what would make our day? Rebuilding ties with Canada.
No, India woke up to a 50% tariff on its exports to the United States. That was the lightning bolt. When the world's biggest market suddenly punishes you, you don't shrug it off. You start sprinting toward anyone who isn't actively throwing bricks at your supply chain.
And Canada looks very attractive right now. We're stable, predictable, we don't start trade fights before breakfast, plus millions of Canadians with roots in India and a consumer base that already trusts India tech, pharmaceuticals, and food imports.
Meanwhile, India's middle class is booming. They want access to Canadian tech, food, education, minerals, and clean energy. You name it. We want access to their market too. It's a mutually beneficial, you bring the customers, we bring the stuff situation.
And on top of that, India is shifting gears internally. They signed a trade deal with Britain this summer. They're in heavy talks with the EU, and experts say that they're trying to open parts of their economy that have been locked down for decades.
And that's not easy. India's domestic politics are a labyrinth. You just don't flip a switch, but they're doing it anyway because the alternative is falling behind while other countries build alliances faster.
And that's exactly where Canada comes in. We're not asking India to change their entire system. We're offering access. Access to investment, technology, critical minerals, clean energy partnerships, education, agricultural, basically the stuff India's middle class is hungry for.
And India needs a partner who won't turn global trade into a demolition derby every few months. Right now, Canada fits that description better than anyone.
So let's talk about Carney's strategy here, because none of this was random. This took months of slow, careful rebuilding. He did that classic, Mark Carney thing where he reconstructs an entire internal relationship the way most people repot a houseplant, slowly, gently, and with a complicated spreadsheet that no one else understands.
The first big move? Modi flying to Kananaskis for the G7 at Carney's invitation. That was the icebreaker, the reset moment, we're not pretending everything's fine, but we're cracking the door open just enough to talk moment.
And after that, the high commissioners were reinstated. And that really matters because that's where the real work happens. Intelligence, coordination, economic planning, diplomatic troubleshooting. You can't negotiate anything meaningful if those people aren't in the room.
Then the ministers started meeting again. Not splashy summits, but private, technical, nuts and bolts kind of meetings. The kind where you decide the outlines of a deal before the cameras even show up.
And Carney didn't rush it. He didn't sprint towards an announcement. He let the machinery come back online first. It's the most Carney move imaginable. Get the plumbing working before you turn on the tap.
And it paid off. Because now, instead of two countries glaring at each other from opposite corners of the room, they're planning a major trade deal and scheduling Carney's trip to India for early 2026.
And of course, this wasn't all smiles and trade charts, right? There's a massive unresolved problem sitting right in the middle of this relationship, and it's impossible to pretend that it's not there.
And yes, we need to talk about the tension. The Nijjar case is still moving through the courts. The Indian community here in Canada, it's divided, and CSIS has not softened its warning. This is not a peacefully resolved situation.
But here's the part that matters. Neither side is pretending the security issues have disappeared. India's High Commissioner openly said that they expect the courts to reveal facts, and if evidence is proven, they'll take action.
Nobody expected that tone from Delhi. A year ago, the answer was basically, we didn't do it, stop asking. So this is a very different posture.
And Carney didn't sidestep the topic either. He said Canada is staying vigilant. He said that foreign interference remains a priority and law enforcement is coordinating. He also said that the security relationship with India is being rebuilt on clear terms.
And all of this is happening while a Sikh referendum is being held in Ottawa. And Ottawa isn't shutting it down because it's a Canadian freedom. But India sees this as a direct challenge to its state integrity.
And that's the tightrope that Canada always walks, protecting rights here while managing the political fallout abroad. Carney's balancing act is keeping Canadians safe, keeping the courts independent, and still bringing India back to the table.
It's like trying to host a family reunion while two uncles are in a very quiet but very intense feud. Everyone still comes, but nobody sits them next to each other.
But if the two countries weren't confident that they could handle the upcoming trial, they wouldn't be announcing this deal now. That's not how Delhi works, and it's definitely not how Carney works.
So let's get into what each side actually stands to gain here.
Canada needs diversified markets. We need to stop relying on the US for basically everything: energy, auto parts, agriculture. And now that the US is handing out tariffs like Halloween candy, that is not sustainable.
India, meanwhile, wants stability. They want access to Canadian critical minerals. They need nickel, cobalt, and the rare earths to build the electric future that they keep promising.
They're also looking for Canadian education ties. The research partnerships, tech training, and academic collaborations that fuel innovation on both sides.
And Canada wants the agriculture market back. The 30% tariff on Canadian peas crushed prairie farmers. Getting that tariff reversed would mean a massive win.
And don't forget AI. Carney signed a partnership with India and Australia during the G20 as well. That's a serious move. If you saw our video about how AI could reshape Canada's economy, our jobs, and yes, even our natural resources, then you know why Canadians need to stay sharp on this. We break down the whole thing in that episode, so check out the link below if you want the full picture.
It's a long-term strategy. India sees serious long-term potential here. And Canada needs global allies who aren't going to torch their own tech sector overnight.
And for Canada, agriculture is only one chapter of the story. That 30% P tariff hit farmers really hard. But the real win is predictable access to a market big enough to matter for our clean energy sector, our tech industries, and the critical minerals that Canada needs to sell, not stockpile.
And all of it takes place against the backdrop of Trump pulling countries away from the U.S. market. The shockwaves from that, they're real.
Which is why Carney is positioning Canada as the country that you can actually do business with without getting blindsided by someone else's meltdown.
The domestic story in India is that Modi wants big global wins heading into the next phase of his leadership. He wants to show voters he's delivering deals while juggling security issues.
And Carney, he wants to position Canada as a top-tier middle power that doesn't just follow the US around with a clipboard. He wants Canada leading deals, not reacting to them.
Millions of Indo-Canadians want stability. They want the relationship functional again so families can travel, businesses can plan, and trade routes don't go into cardiac arrest every 6 months.
And Carney seems to have threaded that needle, engaging India without tossing Canada's security concerns in the shredder.
It's not flashy politics, it's steady politics. And I know that's not as thrilling as a 2 a.m. presidential tweet storm that sends 3 markets and 6 allies into cardiac arrests, but it gets results.
So here we are, Canada and India, back at the table with a chance to reshape one of the most strategically important relationships that we have. It's still fragile, still complicated, but finally moving in the right direction.
It took a diplomatic freeze, accusations, tariffs, global pressure, and a whole lot of Carney patience to get here, but the door is open again.
And if this deal lands, it'll change Canada's economic future for the next decade. India's too.
And somewhere out there, a certain U.S. president is wondering why every country he tries to punish ends up shopping for new trade partners.
So, we'll keep covering the story, and as always, keep your elbows up, stay informed, and stay proud of what this country is doing on the world stage.
All right, Dave, that's today's episode brought to you by the A-Team, Canada's finest collection of viewers, armchair diplomats, amateur economists, and people who yell at the TV with us every single morning.
And a special shout out to the commenters who always timestamp the exact moment my eyebrows go rogue. You keep this operation honest.
And check out our video about another multi-billion-dollar partnership that Carney negotiated with the UAE. The deals just keep on coming.
And don't forget, hit like, leave a comment, and send this video to someone who still thinks Canada sits quietly in the back row of geopolitics. Not anymore. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.
And we finally settled on a time. We'll see you at 12 p.m. all week long.
Ciao for now.
Thanks for watching, everyone.